I think here to kick it off, just to go back to the bye, I think the bye week was very good for us. One, to really hone in on some of the areas where we want to improve as a team. Two, naturally we had some guys that were a little banged up after the first half of the season, so to get them as healthy as we could get them that week, I thought was good. I think three, for a lot of our younger players, that you were really highly competitive throughout training camp and the first part of the season, and then had kind of been on the scout team there for a couple, 3 weeks to refuel their competitive spirit and to do a lot of their work competitively. I thought was great to see. I was proud of those guys in that aspect. But I think inevitably for us, we're back to game week, and we're playing a really good Houston team on the road, and that's different, right? We've got to now reset again, right? Where bye week was one thing, we can't let the bye week kind of trickle into game week. And so it was important for us today to go out and have a good practice with the right mental intensity, the right focus, which I think the guys did, because that's what it's going to take. This football team we're getting ready to play has an experienced quarterback, which we all know all too well. Donovan Smith in the transfer from Tech and how he played against us a year ago, and the challenges that he presents. Obviously two great returners, with Golden and Fleming in the kick return game and the punt return game. A very active defense on the defensive front with what they do with Caesar coming off the edge. And so all in all, we know this team presents a lot of challenges. I think one thing I've been impressed with Coach Holgerson's team is how they've improved throughout the year. Obviously had a great game Thursday night, a very exciting game, which we had a chance to watch. One that they had in hand, kind of slipped away, and then were able to make the play at the end to win it. So we know we've got a confident football team that we're going to play against in a sellout game on the road. And so we've got to prepare for the opportunity that lies ahead, which I think our guys are well underway with that starting this morning.
Raise your hand if you have a question. We'll get a mic to you. Start up here on the left with Danny.
Steve, do you have injury updates for the major guys?
Yeah, all of the guys practice today, okay? So I think that's probably the first part that's really positive, where, last week we really limited a lot of guys. We limited, Jake to all about nothing. We limited JT to all about nothing. We limited Ryan to all about nothing. We really wanted to try to get them healthy. Today we came back, everybody practiced. Probably the most limited of the group was Cole Hudson, but they all practiced. Now, as the week goes on, I'm going to have to make that decision later in the week of who is really ready to play. I don't think, to be fair to them, that's probably, to give them that chance to really practice on Tuesday and Wednesday in our physical practices to make sure that they're in position to perform and to do it at a high level. But I was encouraged today that they were all out there going. But again, as the week goes on, I'll have probably a very cleaner update of who's really going to be available Saturday. But today was a really good sign.
In the middle, Dennis.
Piggybacking off that, with the line in particular, seems like there's probably some moving parts. How important was it to have maybe 2 weeks to cross-train, get everybody ready, and to figure out how that's going to go? Yeah, no, I think it was huge. What great experience Connor got a couple weeks ago in that ball game. And then obviously last week of just kind of being that primary center. We do have players that are really versatile guys. Hayden Connor is an extremely versatile guy that can move around. Nato got a lot of good opportunities last week to rep things out. Cam Williams, again, he's a versatile guy that can move around. So I think that's one thing, one of the reasons why Coach Flood and I have such good rapport. We're very comfortable doing those things. And so you can take a week like last week and move some guys around, knowing there might be some growing pains there, but if we need to get to that down the road, it won't be the first time guys have been exposed to a couple different spots.
Over here on the far left, Kirk.
Yeah, Steve, I don't know if you did a more serious evaluation of your own team
Yes.
during the bye week. Did you learn anything, maybe really good about your team that you didn't really expect, and anything you need to fix a little bit
Yeah,
more?
I think one thing that sometimes I take a little bit for granted is that we're moving the ball at a really high clip offensively right now. I mean, our average yards per play, the efficiency in which we're doing it, we've really improved kind of our third down. And then the one area that jumped out to me is how efficient we've been on fourth down, which is something that we knew we wanted to be aggressive this year. but the effectiveness of the aggressiveness is something that has stood out to me. And so that definitely is something here in the second half of the season. Hopefully we can lean into more to take advantage of that, because I do think we're executing at a high level. I think naturally, offensively, I'll stay there for a minute. Our red zone execution is an area where if we want to be the team that we think we're capable of being, we have to take that to another level. And so that evaluation was not just of the players, that was of the coaches, that was of the game plan, that was of the play caller. What are we calling, when, why? What are our players good at? What do they execute at a high level? And what have they shown us throughout training camp and in practice that we should have confidence in them to go do? So that is something that I'm glad we were able to dig into, and areas where I think we can improve. I think defensively, we've played really good football on the defensive side of the ball. But naturally, as I look at ourselves defensively, an area where I know we can improve is we've got to take the ball off of people more, and we've got to attempt to take the ball off of people more. We've created some interceptions, but we really haven't knocked the ball off of people and created turnovers. And I know we're more than capable of doing it, but sometimes it's like anything. Things can get lost throughout the season, and we're trying to defend the run and defend the pass and all the different things. But we have got to continually, as a staff, emphasize getting the ball off of our opponents. So that for sure is something there. I love the fact that we're attacking the kicking game the way that we are on special teams, and we blocked a punt last week. I really think we should have blocked the second one. We just kind of slipped and our angle got off. We've been really close on the field goal game of blocking kicks there. So I like that, but man, I think we can be even more effective on special teams. And so that's like anything. We're constantly trying to push our guys, but to push our players, we have to push our staff, right? Our staff's got to keep working towards those things as well. So all in all, I'm pleased with where we're at this point in all three phases, but also know we can be better. And that's our job then, to motivate the guys to continue to improve now in the second half of the season.
In the middle, Eric.
Steve, I wonder if you could talk about Savion Red's role in the offense. Obviously, we saw him with the Wildcat pass a couple weeks ago, and also if that role could include some of the goal line and red zone stuff that you talked about a second ago.
So Savion has really grown into this. It's always a little difficult when you change positions, right? He's kind of a high school quarterback, Wildcat quarterback. We got him. His freshman year, he plays wide out. Then we transition him to running back, and there's a lot of nuances to playing running back. I think it's easy just to think get the ball and run, but understanding blocking schemes, understanding fronts, understanding protections, and all that goes into it, and that's a really good room. There's a lot of talented people in there, but to find a niche for him in some of the short yardage running that he was able to do, I thought was very effective. And again, hopefully there's more opportunities for him that present themselves in the second half of the season.
Right, Anwar?
Good morning, Coach. You talked about the twos and threes getting a little bit more run this past week. Can you tell me about any of those guys who may have stood out to you? And for old time's sake, how's Arch doing?
Yeah.
How's Malik doing? How are those guys progressing?
Yeah. So, I think inevitably when the twos and the threes go, the one thing that I'm constantly looking for, we have a lot of really good players. And they make a lot of highlight type plays, and the area where we're really challenging that group is consistency, right? Because that's what it takes to be an every down player on a championship caliber team. There's got to be a level of consistency. We can't have three really good plays and then one catastrophic bust in coverage, or a wrong route, or a drop a ball, or a blown protection. And I think that's something that our frontline guys do really well. We also can use examples from last week's game of when you're in there, and whether you're a frontline player or a new player, and then you have that bust, it becomes catastrophic when you're in a game, because that's how you lose. And so I think that was something that we were really trying to press upon those guys last week, about a level of consistency, whether it was run game, pass game, on either side of the ball, special teams is trying to get that done. So there were a lot of guys, and that wouldn't be fair for me just to single out a couple that would do it. So, but that's something that we're really trying to emphasize to them, of having a level of consistency in your play. I think Malik and Arch have again, just continue to grow systematically in a real sense and understanding of what we're doing. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I thought Arch probably had his best practice that he had since he had been here. And again, there's a level of consistency in that play, right? How do you carry that practice to the next one and the next one and the next one. So that's always a challenge at the quarterback position for us, but there's been great intent in that room with those guys working hard and working with Coach Millie to take their game to another level, because there's going to come a time, knock on wood, when their number is going to get called on, and we're going to need them to play a high level of football to win a ball game.
Stay on the right, Roger.
Coach, when you said don't want that bye week to trickle into this week, is that about keeping the edge that you guys had to have for 6 weeks? Then the guys get a little break, get to go home. Meantime, Houston does still get a little extra time, and they've got that emotional win they're coming off of.
Yeah, no, I think for us, inevitably we're at our best, and I said this coming in the season, when we do play with an edge, when we do play with a chip on our shoulder, when we play like we've got something to prove. And I think it goes without saying we've got something to prove in the second half of the season. And we know they're all going to be very challenging games. Like I said, and it starts this Saturday at Houston. They're going to be excited for the ball game. That was a big win for them, and like I said, I think they've improved each game as they move forward. So we got to make sure that we get our mental intensity right, and that starts in practice. That starts in our meetings, that we're really dialed into the details of the plan of which we're doing, so that we can on Saturday at 3 o'clock go cut it loose and play our style, our brand of football, which is loose, which is confident. But you get that way because of your preparation, and we got to make sure that we have that edge starting this morning and then carry it on throughout the week so that we can perform that way on Saturday.
Over here on your left, center.
Hey Steve, how do you walk that line as a coaching staff, maintaining that edge off a bye week? Because I know you got to get guys healthy, and you also try to keep that connectivity at the same time. Yeah,
our thing was, I wanted to create that edge with our 2s and our 3s last week. I felt like they needed that. Sometimes when you're on scout team and you're given the look of the opponent, and and you're getting told kind of what to do sometimes, and maybe they wouldn't play it a certain way if they could just play the play. Last week I wanted to make sure that I kind of re-sparked their competitive spirit and what that looked like. And so practice remained highly competitive last week. It just wasn't our frontline guys. It wasn't our 1s. It was our 2s and our 3s. And then we made it a big point this morning that, okay, now it's your turn to come right back. So we never really lost the energy at practice that way. It still stayed at a high level. It was just different people. And so now, as I just got done talking to the players again about, was, hey, it's game week. Let's make sure that we maximize this opportunity, right? Opportunities are only great if you seize them, and we've got to seize this opportunity. And so the competitive spirit at practice has got to be right for us to perform.
Who did you watch the game with, the Houston, West Virginia game, and was that a teaching tool, that Hail Mary for your guys?
Well, I was actually with Coach Banks. We were recruiting, and so as we were bouncing around, I had my iPad out, and we were kind of driving and watching it all at once, and getting back to the hotel there at the end. Ironically, it felt a lot like our game 2 weeks ago. Quite frankly, West Virginia scored with whatever it was, 12 seconds. Fortunately for Houston, they got the unsportsmanlike conduct foul and got the kickoff move back. But then it came down to the Hail Mary from the 45, and the ball was able to bounce to them. We executed ours pretty well a couple weeks ago. It just fell in a spot that we weren't there. And so I think the lesson learned is you got to play all 60 minutes until that last tick on the clock. And so, but a credit to Houston for getting themselves back into that position and getting the completion, and then taking that shot at the end and being where they were supposed to be to make the play.
In the middle, Chip.
Steve, how's Anthony Hill progressing at weak side linebacker, and what, if anything, did you learn or tweak about your 2-minute defense?
Yeah, Anthony has really continued to grow. He's not a finished product yet, but he really works at it. He loves football. Like I said, we've asked a lot of him here in the first half of the season at multiple positions and different styles of whether it was rushing the quarterback, spying the quarterback, playing normal linebacker. And I think he's continued to improve. He's definitely got playmaking ability. He plays the game of football the way it's supposed to be played. He plays with fanatical effort. So, hopefully we continue to see that growth out of him and utilize him in a way that can help the football team. From a 2-minute standpoint, as I went back and watched that last drive and a couple of these drives, I think one, we have to improve our tackling in 2-minute. I think it was the second play of that drive 2 weeks ago. We had an opportunity to get the receiver down in bounds, and we don't leverage the ball very well. We don't get them on the ground. You let the receiver get out of bounds. Well, when you get out of bounds, you can stop the clock. Now teams can run whatever play they want to run. So I think one thing is to zone drop right. Another is to keep your pass rush lanes clean, which is something that we've talked about. And then the third component to that is you have to tackle well. And so all that added up to, in the end of that drive, which I think is mightily important, and it kind of came up in the middle of the drive too, our communication's got to be on point. So all those things add up to, I'm not that, hey, as coaches, we always want to make the perfect call and the best call, and I get all that. But at the end of the day, we still have to execute the call. And there's a lot of levels to execution, one of which is communication, everybody on the same page. 2 is doing our job, man, zone coverage, pass rush lanes. But then 3, we still have to continue to tackle. We can't relax. And I thought that those were a couple areas where I think we can improve.
Over here on your left, Leah.
Coach, why do you think this offense, which is so electric, has struggled in the red zone, and kind of what are some areas that you think how do you improve that?
We have to game plan better, and we have to execute better. It's not, that there's no, secret sauce to this deal. I think that our players buy in and trust and believe in what we do, and clearly it shows when we can create explosive plays and move the ball and execute. And in the end, I think ultimately you kind of do an audit on yourself there halfway through the season at the different aspects of the game. And we just need to make sure that from a game planning perspective and what we're asking of our players in game, and then ultimately what I'm calling, that everybody has the utmost confidence in those things to go do that, which I don't doubt that everybody does, but ultimately it comes down to the execution of it all. So I think it's 3 levels to it. What are we putting in each week, and what are we game planning? What are we practicing in practice? 2, then what are we calling, and are we giving our players the looks in practice for the potential looks that they could get in game? And then 3, the execution of those plays in the moment. So it's no different than any other aspect of the game, and sometimes we can make a little more out of that than it is. It's just about trusting who we are and then going out and executing it and doing it at a high level.
On your far right, Joe, go ahead.
A lot of your explosive plays this year have been runs. What's kind of the ingredients to making a run play turn into an explosive play?
Well, I think one, the plan, right? I mean, we've got to make sure that the runs that we're calling predicated on the defenses and the fronts that we're getting are playing into our strengths, but also hopefully taking advantage of maybe a weakness in theirs, whether it's a personnel weakness or a schematic weakness. I think 2, our RPO game is really effective, and so that the fact that people have to defend our RPOs because, whether it's Xavier, Jordan, AD, even our tight ends have gotten involved in our RPO game to create explosive plays. 3, the threat of those guys in the pass game, the play action pass game, and people are obviously very concerned with us, throwing the ball over their heads and are playing a little bit more of a conservative approach. In turn, if you put all that together and you block the front well, that's creating space and running lanes for our runners, most notably Jonathan, and he's taking advantage of it. I think the last piece that sometimes our guys don't get enough credit for, not every run play we call is an RPO, and we ask a lot of our receivers in blocking downfield, and that block is really the one that creates the explosive play, right? That block on the safety, that block on the corner, backside, might be that block that springs a long run. So I think it all comes together, and there's a lot of value to that. Of if we want to be a complete offense here in the second half of the season, we got to run it. We got to RPO people. We got to play pass people. We got to throw it. We got to do all those things to make it really difficult to where hopefully a defensive coordinator feels like, man, I got to pick my poison, right? How do I want this to go? And then we execute and we call the plays that in a timely fashion, and that the quarterback makes good decisions to take advantage of those things.
Over here on your left, Thomas.
Hey, Coach, kind of piggybacking on the Anthony Hill question earlier. Hill, Muhammad, Derek Williams have all played a lot of snaps. How much might their roles expand in the second half of the season, if at all?
Well, I mean, I think they'll expand to some degree, but that degree is a lot of going to be dictated on how do they continue to improve. Where's their level of understanding week in and week out, their mental preparation, their practice habits. Two, a lot of that's going to depend on some of the guys that they're competing for playing time with. How do they practice? How do they prepare? I want a highly competitive team. I want guys that are fighting for snaps and doing all the things necessary to earn playing time and to earn snaps, because we're a better team when we play more players, right? That's how you're fresh in the fourth quarter and you can play that style of football for 60 minutes. And so, but they're going to earn those things, predicated on, like I said, their mental preparation in the game plan, their ability to exhibit that in practice to give us the confidence to put them out there more, and then ultimately when it comes down to time to play, how they play in those moments. And so, but again, all those guys have earned it up until this point. They've done a good job, and hopefully they can continue to progress.
On your far right, Ed.
Coach, as you watch football this weekend, what was the most impressive thing you saw from a college football game? And do you ever find yourself watching an offensive formation or a play and say, ooh, we're going to take that, we're going to put it in this week? Do coaches do that? Do you steal from other coaches? I'm
a really honest person. I do it all the time. I do not pretend to have invented football, okay? I think, first of all, I'll answer that part first. I watch football, like I said, as a fan first. I think we have a beautiful game. It's a great sport, especially college football, the pageantry of the game, the excitement of the game, and to watch the Washington-Oregon game, to watch the Notre Dame SC game, and to see that the excitement in those stadiums. I mean, that's what it's all about. But two, I watch it from a lens of a coach of just trying to get ideas. It may not be the exact play, but it could spurn an idea. And like I said, I don't pretend to walk in here like, everything comes to me with this cloud in my head in the morning. A lot of times it's watching somebody else do something, like, oh, we could do that, but it would fit us better if we did it out of this personnel or this formation. So I do watch the games like that, but it was great watching football this weekend. We've got a great sport. I think college football right now is as popular as it's been in a long, long time. You can feel it in the fans. You can feel it in the excitement. I think this is going to be a great half to the second half of the season of college football. I think there's more parity now than there's been in a long, long time. And so a lot of people are probably looking at the second half of the season thinking we've got an opportunity to do something special. We're no different. But everybody's got to go handle their business accordingly, 1 week at a time.
Back by the cameras in the middle, Tyler.
Steve, on that note, can you describe the feeling you get when you watch your former players excel in the NFL, specifically with what Bijan's been able to do this year?
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. We have an idea as coaches of maybe how guys will translate to the NFL. It's a little bit of a different game, obviously, but his skill set is so unique, and when you can make people miss in a phone booth and then get to top speed, it doesn't matter what league you're in, he doesn't lose that skill set that he has. And so I think the one thing every time I've bumped into a couple of scouts from the Falcons who have been at practice is they say the same thing I used to say for the last 2 years here. He's a better person than he is player. And, so Bijan is still being Bijan, whether it's off the field and or on the field, and I think that's as exciting as ever. But seeing all those guys go out there and compete at a high level, the NFL games are a little bit more difficult for us to see and to watch because we're game planning on Sundays. But they always make sure they make me a little bit of a highlight of those guys so I can see them and get a chance to reach out to them and check in on them.
Got time for two last ones. Jeff in the middle.
Sark, you mentioned getting out on the road to recruit. How was it just getting back out on the road? And then what changed to your recruiting plan, if any, does the elimination of the initial counter limits going forward do?
Yeah, so they did change the rules for us with the number of days that we get to go out in fall. And that's probably affected me as much or more than anybody, where, you guys know I like to go to games on Thursday nights and get out and see guys play. But, the NCAA has cut those days in half and not just for us. I'm talking, for the entire country. So for us to be able to get out this weekend, I loved it. I love getting to games. I love watching guys compete when they're ahead, when they're behind. How do they warm up? And I got to see some really good football players this weekend that I'm excited that we get to continue to recruit. So hopefully I get a few more chances, what our recruiting team tells us. But it really is a lot more difficult now. You just can't get out and go to a game because you want to go to a game. We have to be, it has to make sense for to send a coach or to send me to a ball game to go watch.
Just your thoughts on the counter limits.
It really doesn't affect us that way as much. They kind of had, it was pseudo last year, and now they just made it permanent. I think it makes sense now with the transfer portal. It's 85. Let's just be at 85, and whatever you got to do to field your roster, because it gets difficult when you have guys going in the portal after spring ball. There's no more high school kids to sign, and so if you need to fill voids on your roster through the portal, it gives you the opportunity to do that.
Last one over here on the far left. Kurt?
On the Hail Mary question, I don't know how often you practice it, and do you teach your guys to knock it down or go for the interception, and has it worked against you?
Yeah, you just like spurning my side. So we do practice it every Friday. We go through the Hail Mary scenarios, the end of the game scenarios, which are a lot of them. Sometimes it's a must out of bounds for a field goal, different things of that nature. The hurry up field goal kick, all those kinds of things. We do that on every Friday. We implement them throughout training camp, and then every Friday we go through those situations. We do teach our guys to knock that ball down in that situation. I've caught one Hail Mary as a coach in my career, not me personally, but our team, and I've lost a game on a Hail Mary in my career. Arizona State against USC in 2014, and might have cost us a chance to win a championship. So I'll never forget that one. The Hail Mary we caught happened to be at the end of the half against Oregon State when I was there. So you never know, man. Those plays, you just try to execute them the right way, and our guys offensively are trying to get to their spots, and then defensively you're just trying to knock that ball down and get preserve the win. No, for right now, normally it's Ryan Watts, and he's a little bit down. So, Derek Williams gets back there now. He can go get it. When I was in the NFL, Julio Jones used to actually go in on defense, and he was that guy. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a defensive player, but a guy who's got a high football IQ that can go high point that ball.